Frank Martinez stood at attention in the crowded assembly hall of the Interstellar Defense Academy. His back was straight, but his mind was racing. The massive room held over 300 cadets from 37 different species across the galaxy. Humans were still new to the Galactic Confederation. Earth had only joined 50 years ago, and many aliens still viewed humans with suspicion or fear. Frank tried not to fidget as Commander Xylax moved to the front of the stage. The tall, blue-scaled Aquarian officer had webbed hands and a voice that sounded like water flowing over rocks. His large, unblinking eyes scanned the room. "Today we announce the cadets selected for the Tactical Response Exercise," Commander Xylax said. "This prestigious assignment is given only to our most promising students." Frank didn't bother getting his hopes up. In the 6 months since joining the academy, he had learned that humans rarely got chosen for special assignments. Most alien instructors considered humans too unpredictable or aggressive. Earth was classified as a death world due to its high gravity, extreme weather, and dangerous wildlife. This made other species nervous around humans. "When I call your name, step forward," Commander Xylax continued. He began reading from his datapad. Cadet Zrith of Thexia, Cadet Pelmark of Torgon, Cadet Martinez of Earth. Frank blinked in surprise. Had he heard correctly? Several cadets near him turned to stare. He stepped forward, his heart beating faster. The commander continued. Cadet Palmer of Earth, Cadet Washington of Earth, Cadet Stewart of Earth. 3 more humans stepped forward. Frank recognized them from his classes. Olivia Palmer was a smart, quiet woman who excelled at navigation. Gregory Washington was a tall, friendly man with a talent for engineering. Nicole Stewart was a serious, focused woman who was top of their tactics class. Whispers spread through the assembly hall. 4 humans chosen for the same mission? It was unheard of. A mantis-like Thexian cadet named Krell clicked his mandibles together. "This must be a mistake," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Sending Deathworlders on a diplomatic simulation? They'll start an interstellar incident." Commander Xylax silenced the room with a stern look. "The selected cadets will report to Docking Bay 7 at 0600 tomorrow. Dismissed." Later, in the cafeteria, Frank sat with the other 3 human cadets. They had known each other before but had never really spent time together. "Why would they pick all 4 of us?" Olivia asked, pushing her food around on her plate. "Humans never get picked for these exercises." Greg shrugged his broad shoulders. "Maybe they're finally recognizing our abilities?" Nicole shook her head. "No, something else is going on. Admiral Vrelix made this selection personally. He's the Academy Commandant." Frank looked up in surprise. "The Commandant himself? That makes even less sense." A shadow fell across their table. They looked up to see a tall, thin alien with gray skin and 4 arms. It was Instructor Joral, one of the few teachers who treated humans fairly. "Mind if I join you?" he asked in his whispery voice. The humans made room for him. Joral sat down and leaned forward. "I shouldn't be telling you this," he said quietly, "but you should be careful on this mission. Some of the senior officers aren't happy about humans advancing so quickly through the ranks. Admiral Vrelix has always been fair, but there are others who think humans are too dangerous to be given real responsibility." Frank frowned. "You think this mission is some kind of test?" Joral's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "I think you should be prepared for anything. The official briefing says you're going to the Dravari system for a diplomatic exercise. But Dravari don't like visitors, and they especially don't like humans." After Joral left, the 4 humans looked at each other with concern. "We should prepare for the worst," Nicole said. The next morning, they reported to Docking Bay 7. Their training vessel was called the Celestial Scout. It was small but well-equipped, with sleeping quarters for 12 cadets and 3 instructors. Lieutenant Pravik, a silicon-based Torgon with crystal-like skin, met them at the entrance ramp. His face was hard to read, but his voice was cold. "Welcome aboard, cadets. Stow your gear and report to the briefing room in 20 minutes. Once inside their shared quarters, Frank noticed something odd. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a weapons locker that had been installed next to their bunks. Inside were high-powered plasma rifles, shock grenades, and tactical shields. "I thought this was supposed to be a diplomatic mission," Greg said. examining one of the rifles. This is combat gear. Nicole was checking the ship's navigation system on her data pad. Our flight path goes nowhere near the Dravari system, she reported. We're heading toward the Scutum Centaurus arm. And why did they tell us to wear full combat suits, Olivia added, tapping the heavy protective armor they had all been issued. Diplomatic missions use ceremonial dress. Frank felt a chill run down his spine. I think Instructor Giral was right. This isn't what they told us it would be. The ship's AI announced, all cadets report to the briefing room immediately. In the briefing room, they met the other cadets. 2 Thexians, an Aquarian, and a Torgan. Lieutenant Pravik stood at the front with 2 other instructors. Our mission has changed, Pravik announced without preamble. We've detected unusual activity in this sector. Consider this a combat readiness drill now. The alien cadets looked confused and worried. The human cadets exchanged knowing glances. Something was definitely wrong here. As they left the briefing room, the ship suddenly shuddered. Emergency lights began flashing. All hands to battle stations, came the announcement. This is not a drill. Frank grabbed Nicole's arm. Remember, Earth History class, the Battle of Midway, Pearl Harbor? Nicole's eyes widened. You think we're being set up? I think someone wants to prove that humans can't be trusted with real responsibility, Frank replied. And I think they're willing to put us in danger to prove it. The ship shuddered again, harder this time. The humans braced themselves against the wall as the artificial gravity briefly flickered. Whatever's happening, Frank said to his fellow. Human cadets, we stick together. Earth has survived worse things than alien politics. As they raced toward their assigned stations, Frank couldn't shake the feeling that this training mission was about to become the biggest test of their lives. But humans didn't come from a death world for nothing. Whatever was waiting for them, they would be ready. The Celestial Scout dropped out of hyperspace with a violent shudder. Frank Martinez grabbed the edge of his console to stay upright. Red warning lights flashed throughout the bridge. Report, Lieutenant Pravik demanded, his crystalline face showing no emotion. 3 Confederation vessels under attack, sir, responded the Aquarian cadet at the sensor station. Attackers are using unmarked ships. Frank looked at the main screen. In the darkness of space, he could see 3 Confederation ships surrounded by 7 smaller vessels. The attackers were firing continuously, their weapons creating bright flashes against the shields of the larger ships. That's the medical transport healing light, said Olivia Palmer, pointing to one of the Confederation vessels. She had memorized all ship types during her navigation classes. Those 2 others are cargo ships. A crackling voice came over the communication system. Mayday, Mayday. This is the medical transport healing light. We are under attack by Scaran raiders. Shields at 20% and failing. We have 126 patients on board who cannot be moved. Lieutenant. Pravik turned to face all the cadets. This is no longer a training exercise. We are the only Confederation vessel in range. We must assist. The alien cadets looked at each other with uncertainty. The human cadets exchanged quick glances. Sir, Frank said, stepping forward. Request permission to lead a response team. Pravik's crystal eyes narrowed. You're just a cadet, Martinez. Yes, sir, but the 4 of us humans have trained for emergency situations like this. Earth's space program had extensive rescue protocols. Nicole Stewart joined him. Sir, humans are better suited for the physical demands of boarding operations. Our higher gravity homeworld gives us advantages in strength and endurance. Lieutenant Pravik looked uncomfortable, but another hit on the medical transport decided the matter. Shields down to 5%, reported the sensor operator. Very well, Pravik said reluctantly. Cadet Martinez, take your team and prepare to board the healing light. Your mission is to protect the patients and crew. The 4 humans hurried to the equipment room and quickly put on their combat suits. These suits were standard Confederation design, bulky and heavy for most species. But for humans used to Earth's stronger gravity, they were manageable. These raiders aren't following normal attack patterns, Greg Washington said as he checked his plasma rifle. Look how they're specifically targeting power systems and life support. Normal pirates would go for cargo, And why attack a medical transport? Olivia added. There's nothing valuable to steal. Frank nodded grimly. This feels like the setup we suspected. I think someone wants to see how humans react under pressure. Well, Nicole said with determination, let's show them exactly what Deathworlders can do. Frank activated his suit's communication system. Lieutenant, we have a plan. The raiders have cut main power to the medical transport. We can use our suit's external thrusters to cross open space directly to the ship. There was silence on the comm line for a moment. Then Pravik's voice came through, sounding shocked. That's extremely dangerous. Standard procedure is to dock and transfer through the airlocks. The docking ports are being targeted, Frank explained. We can avoid detection by using minimal thrusters and approaching from the shadow side of the ship. After a pause, Pravik responded. Proceed at your own risk, cadets. The 4 humans moved to the airlock. They checked each other's equipment. One last time. Nicole and I will restore emergency power once we're aboard, Greg said. You and Olivia secure the bridge and assess the situation. Frank nodded. Remember, we're here to protect, not just fight. Let's make Earth proud. The airlock opened and the vacuum of space greeted them. One by one they pushed off, using short bursts from their thrusters to move toward the damaged medical transport. Their suits protected them from the cold emptiness, but they could still feel the vastness around them. They reached the hull of the healing light without being detected. Greg used a specialized tool to create a temporary airlock on the ship's emergency access port. Once they were inside, they split into 2 teams as planned. Frank and Olivia moved quietly through the darkened corridors. Emergency lights provided minimal visibility. They could hear sounds of fighting ahead. Life signs? Frank whispered into his comm. Olivia checked her scanner. Multiple life forms on the bridge. Some Confederation, some likely raiders. They approached the bridge carefully. Through the partially open door they could see 6 armed figures. They wore armor with no identifying marks, but their movements were professional and coordinated. Those aren't Scaran raiders, Olivia whispered. Their tactics are too disciplined, Frank agreed. Mercenaries maybe, let's use Tactic 7. Tactic 7 was something they had practiced in Earth's military academies. Frank readied a flashbang grenade while Olivia prepared to rush in low. 3, 2, 1, Condi, Frank counted down, then tossed the grenade through the doorway. A brilliant flash and deafening sound filled the bridge. The mercenaries were momentarily disoriented. Frank and Olivia rushed in, keeping low and moving fast. Earth's higher gravity had given them strength and speed that surprised the attackers. Before the mercenaries could recover, Frank and Olivia had disarmed 2 of them and knocked them unconscious. The other 4 mercenaries tried to regroup, but they were not prepared for the humans' close-quarters combat skills. Earth's long history of warfare had developed fighting techniques that most Confederation species had never seen. They're just students, one mercenary shouted in disbelief as Olivia disarmed him with a swift movement. How are they moving so fast in those suits? Within minutes, all 6 mercenaries were subdued. Frank and Olivia secured them with restraints, then checked on the bridge crew. The Confederation officers were shaken but unharmed. Thank you, said the ship's captain, a tall, bird-like Avarian. They cut our power and were trying to access our patient records. Patient records? Frank frowned. Why would raiders want medical information? Before the captain could answer, Greg's voice came over the comm. Frank, we've restored emergency power to life support and medical systems, but you need to see something. What is it? Frank asked. These raiders. Greg replied, his voice tense. They're using Confederation military tactics, and their equipment is advanced military grade. These aren't Scarans. Frank looked at the captured mercenaries, understanding dawning on him. Someone inside the Confederation is behind this. This whole thing is a setup. Just then, Nicole's voice joined the conversation. The attacking ships are preparing another assault. What's our plan? Frank made a quick decision. We use their own communications against them. Get me access to their frequency. The battle was far from over and the truth was still hidden. But one thing was clear. The 4 human cadets were proving more capable than anyone had expected. The real test was just beginning. Frank Martinez stood on the bridge of the medical transport healing light. The 6 captured mercenaries sat against the wall, hands bound behind their backs. They wore unmarked black armor, but Frank could now see they were mostly Thexians and Torgons, species well represented in the Confederation military. "I need access to their communication frequency," Frank said to the Avarian captain. The bird-like captain hesitated. "Our systems are still damaged. We can only receive, not transmit." Olivia Palmer was already examining the mercenaries' equipment. She removed a communication device from one of their helmets. "We can use this," she said. "Their own tech will be more convincing anyway." Greg Washington's voice came through their comms. "Frank, you should know something else. These raiders specifically targeted the medical records of human patients. Nicole found their search patterns in the computer system." Frank exchanged a glance with Olivia. This confirmed their suspicions. Someone in the Confederation was targeting humans. "How are the patients doing?" Frank asked. "Stable for now," Greggy replied. "Life support is running on emergency power, but we need to end this conflict quickly." Frank made a decision. "Here's the plan. Nicole, stay with Greg and keep the patient safe. Olivia and I will deal with the attacking ships." Olivia had finished examining the mercenaries' communication device. "Ready when you are." Frank picked up the device and took a deep breath. Bluffing was risky, but he had learned from Earth history that sometimes boldness was the best strategy. "This is Cadet Frank Martinez of Earth," he broadcast on the mercenary frequency. "We have secured your boarding party and identified your ships through residual quantum signatures. We know who hired you." There was silence on the channel. Frank continued, his voice firm. "We have accessed your secure files. We know this operation is backed by elements within the Confederation. Surrender now, and we'll ensure you're treated according to Confederation law. Continue fighting, and we'll release all the evidence to every species in the galaxy." It was a complete bluff. They had no quantum signatures, no secure files, but Frank gambled on the fear and uncertainty such a message would create. After a tense moment, a gruff voice responded. "You're lying. You're just cadets. You have nothing." Frank didn't hesitate. "The commander of your boarding team has already provided details. We have names, dates, and transfer records. Your payment came from account number XTR7729 Omega. Sound familiar?" Frank had made up the account number, but the sharp intake of breath on the other end told him he had struck a nerve. "How did you?" The voice trailed off. Frank pressed his advantage. "You have 2 minutes to begin surrender procedures before we transmit everything to Confederation headquarters." He shut off the comm and looked at Olivia. "Do you think they bought it?" Before she could answer, one of the mercenaries laughed. "Clever human, but my commander won't surrender to students." Frank knelt beside the mercenary. "Your commander doesn't need to know we're students. All he needs to know is that his plan failed and humans discovered it." The mercenary's mandibles clicked nervously. "You don't understand what you're involved in. Powerful people want to prove that humans are too dangerous to serve in Confederation forces." "By staging an attack on innocent patients?" Olivia asked, in disbelief. "The patients were never in danger," the mercenary insisted. "We were ordered to create a scenario where you humans would respond with excessive force. When you killed us in self-defense, it would prove humans are too violent to trust." Frank stood up. "Well, that plan failed. We captured you without killing anyone." The comm device crackled to life. "This is Commander Vrex of the Independent. Vessel Swift Justice, we are powering down weapons, but this doesn't end here, human." Frank allowed himself a small smile. "Actually, I think it does." Olivia checked the sensor readings. All 7 attack ships are powering down weapons and engines. They're surrendering. Just then, Nicole's voice came through their comms. "Frank, we have visitors. 3 Confederation officers just transported aboard. They're heading to the bridge." "Who are they?" Frank asked. "One is Admiral Vrelex from the Academy," Nicole replied. "The others I don't recognize." Frank and Olivia quickly straightened their combat suits and prepared to meet the officers. The bridge door slid open, revealing 3 figures. Admiral Vrelex was a tall, dignified Aquarian with deep blue scales. Behind him stood 2 stern-looking officers, one Thexian and one Torgon, the same species as most of the mercenaries. "Cadet Martinez," Admiral Vrelek said, his voice showing no emotion. Explain this situation. Frank stood at attention. Sir, we responded to a distress call from this medical transport. We discovered it was under attack by mercenaries disguised as Scaran raiders. We have secured the ship and accepted the surrender of the attacking vessels. The Thexian officer stepped forward. This was a training exercise designed to test your responses. You interfered with a classified operation. Frank kept his composure. With respect, sir, attacking a medical transport carrying 126 patients is not a training exercise, it's a violation of Confederation law. Admiral Vrelek turned to the Thexian officer. Is this true, Commander Sith? Were actual patients endangered? The Thexian's mandibles clicked in agitation. The situation was under control. We were testing the humans' responses to stress. Olivia spoke up. Sir, we found evidence that the mercenaries were specifically targeting records of human patients. Admiral Vrelek's fins flared in surprise. Is this confirmed? Yes, sir, Greg said as he and Nicole entered the bridge. We found their search algorithms in the ship's computer. They were extracting medical data on human physiology. The Torgon officer suddenly turned and tried to leave, but Nicole quickly blocked his path. Going somewhere, sir? She asked calmly. Admiral Vrelek's expression hardened. Commander Zax, explain yourself. The Torgon's crystalline face showed no emotion, but his voice was tight. This is a misunderstanding. The operation was approved by the Military Council. Not by me, Admiral Vrelek said firmly, and I am head of the Council. Frank realized what was happening. This was an unauthorized operation, wasn't it? Certain officers wanted to discredit humans, so they staged this attack without proper approval. Admiral Vrelek looked at the 4 human cadets with something like respect. It appears that way, Cadet Martinez. He turned to the 2 officers. Commander? Sith and Commander Zax, you are relieved of duty pending investigation. Frank felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Their suspicions had been correct, and now the truth was coming out. Sir, he said to Admiral Vrelek, the attacking ships have surrendered. They're awaiting instructions. Admiral Vrelek nodded. We'll handle them from here. The Confederation. Battlecruiser Luminous Justice will arrive shortly. He paused, studying the 4 humans. You cadets have performed exceptionally well under extraordinary circumstances. We were just doing our duty, sir, Frank replied. No, Admiral Vrelek said thoughtfully. You did much more than that. You showed restraint when aggression would have been easier. You protected innocent lives. And you uncovered a conspiracy within our ranks. The 4 human cadets stood a little straighter at the praise. The Luminous Justice will be here soon. Admiral Vrelek continued. I believe your actions today will change many minds about humans in the Confederation. As if, on cue, the ship's sensors detected a new arrival. The massive form of the battlecruiser Luminous Justice appeared, its powerful presence ending any remaining doubt about who was in control of the situation. What had started as a trap for the human cadets had become something very different. The truth was coming to light, and the reputation of Earth's children in the stars would never be the same again. The arrival of the battlecruiser. Luminous Justice changed everything. The massive ship dwarfed both the medical transport and the surrendered attack vessels. Its presence brought a sense of order to the chaotic situation. Frank Martinez watched. From the bridge of the Healing Light, a shuttlecraft departed from the Luminous Justice. They were coming to secure the mercenaries and investigate the incident. What happens now? Olivia Palmer asked, standing beside him. Admiral Vrelek, who had remained on the bridge, answered her question. Now we get to the truth. The Confederation Council will want a full investigation. Greg Washington and Nicole Stewart joined them after making sure all the patients were stable. The 4 human cadets stood together, tired but proud of what they had accomplished. Sir, Frank said to Admiral Vrelek, I have a question. Did you know about this plot when you selected us for the mission? The Admiral's blue scales shimmered as he considered his answer. I suspected something was wrong. There have been concerns about humans in the Confederation for some time. When I saw that Commander Zith and Commander Zax had requested 4 human cadets for a training mission, I became suspicious. So you didn't tell us because you wanted to see how we would react? Nicole asked, her voice neutral but her eyes watchful. Admiral Frelix's fins flattened slightly, and what the humans had learned was a sign of regret. I wasn't certain of what was happening. I thought it best to let events unfold while keeping watch. I didn't expect things to escalate to an actual attack. That's why Lieutenant Pravik was so reluctant to let us take action, Greg realized. He wasn't part of the plot, just following orders. Correct, Admiral Vrelix confirmed. Pravik is a good officer. He was as surprised as anyone when the attack occurred. The bridge door opened, and a team of security officers from the Luminous Justice entered. They were led by a serious-looking Aquarian captain. Admiral, the captain said with a salute, we've secured the attacking vessels. The mercenaries are being taken into custody. Thank you, Captain Morale, Admiral Vrelix replied. These 4 cadets are the ones who handled the situation. I want their actions noted in your official report. Captain Morale looked at the humans with obvious surprise. These cadets captured 12 armed mercenaries and convinced 7 attack ships to surrender? They did, Admiral Vrelix said with a hint of pride. And they did it without a single casualty. The security team began to take statements from everyone involved. Frank found himself describing the events to a Torgon officer whose crystalline face showed increasing amazement as the story unfolded. You crossed open space using just your suit thrusters? The officer asked in disbelief. That's incredibly dangerous. Frank shrugged. It seemed like the best option at the time. And you bluffed the mercenary commander into surrendering by claiming you had evidence you didn't actually possess. Sometimes the appearance of strength is more effective than actual strength, Frank explained. That's something we learned from Earth history. When the initial statements were complete, Admiral Vrelix gathered the 4 human cadets in a quiet corner of the bridge. You should know that what happened here today will have significant consequences, he told them. The plot against humans in the Confederation goes deeper than just Commander Zith and Commander Zax. How deep? Olivia asked. Admiral Vrelix sighed, a strange sound coming from his aquatic lungs. There is a faction within the Confederation that believes humans are too unpredictable, too aggressive to be fully integrated into our society. They point to Earth's violent history as evidence that humans cannot be trusted with advanced technology or military responsibility. But that's not fair, Greg protested. Yes, Earth has had wars, but we've also created art, music, literature. We've developed medicines and technologies to help people. I agree, Admiral Vrelix said. Every species has a violent past. What matters is how they choose to use their strength in the present. And that's what this was all about? Nicole asked. They wanted to prove humans are too violent by forcing us into a situation where we would have to use violence? Precisely. Admiral Vrelix nodded. They expected you to kill the boarding party and possibly destroy some of the attacking ships. That would have proven their point that humans are dangerous and unpredictable. Frank felt a surge of anger but controlled it. Instead, we captured the mercenaries without serious injuries and convinced the ships to surrender without firing a shot. You turned their test against them, Admiral Vrelix agreed. But this isn't over. The faction opposing human integration will try again in different ways. Then we'll be ready, Frank said confidently. And so will other humans in the Confederation. Admiral. Vrelix studied them thoughtfully. I believe you will. Now there's something else you should know. The medical records the mercenaries were accessing, they weren't just any human medical data. They were specifically looking for information about human adaptability to different environments. Why would they want that? Olivia asked. Because it's what makes humans unique in the Confederation, the Admiral explained. Most species evolve to fit one specific environment. Aquarians like myself need moisture and certain water conditions. Thexians require specific atmospheric compositions. But humans? You can adapt to almost any environment with minimal technological assistance. That's because Earth itself has so many different environments, Greg said. Deserts, oceans, mountains, forests, we evolved to handle them all. Exactly, Admiral Vrelix said. And that adaptability makes you valuable and feared. The faction opposing humans believes your adaptability makes you unpredictable and potentially dominant if not controlled. Frank thought about this. So they want to limit human involvement in the Confederation before we become too numerous or influential. That is their goal, the Admiral confirmed. But after today, their position has weakened considerably. Captain, Merrill approached them. Admiral, we're ready to transfer the patients to the Luminous Justice. The medical transport is too damaged to continue its journey. Proceed, Admiral Vrelex ordered. Then he turned back to the cadets. You four will return with me to the Academy. The Confederation Council will want to hear your testimony directly. As they prepared to leave the healing light, Frank looked at his fellow cadets. They had been through an extraordinary experience together and had proven themselves in ways they never expected. Whatever happens next, he said quietly, remember what we did here. We didn't win by being the strongest or the most aggressive. We won by being clever, by working together, and by showing restraint when it would have been easier not to. Olivia, Greg, and Nicole nodded in agreement. The Confederation needs to see that humans aren't just Deathworlders, Nicole said. We're more than our planet's gravity and predators. As they boarded the shuttle to the Luminous Justice, Frank felt a strange sense of pride. They had changed perceptions today, not just for themselves, but for all humans in the galaxy. And this was just the beginning. 2 weeks after the incident, Frank Martinez stood nervously outside the grand chamber of the Confederation Council. The massive doors were carved from ancient wood from dozens of different worlds, symbolizing the unity of the many species in the galaxy. Beside him, Olivia Palmer adjusted her formal cadet uniform. Greg Washington and Nicole Stewart checked each other's appearance. All four humans were dressed in their best, ready to testify about what had happened on the medical transport healing light. Remember, Frank said quietly, just tell the truth. That's all we need to do. Admiral Vrelex approached them, his blue scales gleaming in the soft light of the hallway. It's time, he said. The council is ready to hear your testimony. The doors swung open, revealing a circular chamber. Rows of seats rose up like stairs, filled with representatives from every species in the Confederation. At the center was a small platform where speakers would stand. The four human cadets followed Admiral Vrelex into the chamber. Frank could feel hundreds of eyes watching them, some curious, some suspicious, some openly hostile. High Counselor Jorah, an elderly Avarian with silver feathers, spoke first. We gathered today to hear testimony regarding the incident aboard the medical transport healing light. Admiral Vrelex, you may proceed. Admiral Vrelex stepped onto the central platform. Honored counselors, 2 weeks ago, 4 human cadets from the Interstellar Defense Academy uncovered a plot against the Confederation. This plot involved the illegal use of mercenaries, the endangerment of medical patients, and the unauthorized access of confidential medical records. Murmurs spread through the chamber as Admiral Vrelex continued. The investigation has revealed that Commander Zith and Commander Zax were part of a faction that sought to prove humans are too dangerous to serve in Confederation forces. They staged an attack on a medical transport, expecting the human cadets to respond with excessive violence. A Thexian counselor stood. And did they? Did the humans respond with violence? Admiral Vrelex gestured to the 4 cadets. I believe they should answer that question themselves. Cadet Martinez, please step forward. Frank swallowed hard and walked to the central platform. The Admiral stepped aside, leaving Frank alone before the entire council. Honored counselors, Frank began, his voice steadier than he expected. When we discovered the medical transport was under attack, we had to make quick decisions. We chose to board the ship directly by crossing open space in our combat suits. He described how they had split into teams, restored power to critical systems, and secured the bridge. We captured the mercenary boarding party without causing any serious injuries, Frank explained. And we convinced the attacking ships to surrender by using communication rather than force. You expect us to believe 4 cadets captured 12 armed mercenaries without killing any of them? A skeptical Torgan counselor asked. Nicole stepped forward without being called. Earth's gravity is approximately 1.4 times stronger than the Confederation standard. We humans are naturally stronger and faster in standard gravity environments. This gave us an advantage, but we chose to use that advantage responsibly. The Torgon counselor seemed surprised by her boldness but nodded in acknowledgement. Greg joined his fellow cadets. We also discovered that the mercenaries were specifically targeting medical records of human patients. They were gathering data on human adaptability to different environments. This revelation caused a stir in the chamber. Many counselors leaned forward with interest. Olivia completed their group on the platform. The evidence suggests that certain individuals feared human adaptability. They saw it as a threat rather than an asset to the Confederation. High Counselor Jorah raised a wing for silence. Is it true that you convinced 7 attack vessels to surrender without firing a single shot from your ship? Frank nodded. Yes, Counselor. We used the mercenaries' own communication equipment to contact their commander. We suggested that we had evidence of who had hired them and threatened to release that information. A bluff, said an Aquarian counselor, sounding impressed. A successful one, Frank agreed. We believed that avoiding conflict, if possible, was the best approach. High Counselor Jorah studied the 4 humans thoughtfully. In the 2 weeks since this incident, our investigation has confirmed everything these cadets have reported. Commander Sith and Commander Zax have admitted their involvement in the plot, along with 7 other high-ranking officers from various species. The chamber was silent as the counselor continued. The faction that orchestrated this plot has been disbanded. Their actions were based on fear rather than fact. Admiral Vrelek stepped forward again. Honored counselors, I believe this incident has demonstrated something important about humans. Yes, they come from a high-gravity world with environmental challenges that make them physically capable, but they have shown that they use their strength with wisdom and restraint. Frank looked around the chamber, noticing how many of the counselors were nodding in agreement. Even those who had seemed suspicious before were listening with interest. Therefore, Admiral Vrelek continued, I propose that the restrictions on human advancement in the Confederation forces be lifted. Humans have proven themselves worthy of our full trust and partnership. This statement caused excited discussion throughout the chamber. Some counselors appeared supportive, others uncertain. High Counselor Jorah waited for the noise to settle before speaking. This proposal will be considered by the full council, she announced. For now, we wish to recognize the actions of these 4 cadets. Step forward, please. Frank, Olivia, Greg, and Nicole stood at attention before the High Counselor. For exceptional service to the Confederation, for courage in the face of danger, and for wisdom beyond your years, each of you is awarded the Star of Valor. This is the first time in Confederation history that this honor has been given to cadets. A Thexian official approached with a small box containing 4 medallions, each one a silver star with a blue crystal at its center. As the medallions were placed around their necks, Frank felt a surge of pride. Additionally, High Counselor, Jorah continued, you are all promoted to the rank of junior officers effective immediately. Upon graduation from the academy, you will be assigned to ships where your unique abilities can best serve the Confederation. The chamber erupted in applause. Frank could hardly believe what was happening. They had not only survived a dangerous situation but had changed perceptions about humans throughout the Confederation. As they left the council chamber, Admiral Vrelek walked beside them. You've started something important here, he told them. The path for humans in the Confederation will be different because of what you did. We just did what we thought was right, Frank said simply. And that, replied the Admiral, is exactly why the Confederation needs humans. Your species has a unique perspective that benefits us all. News of their actions spread quickly through the Academy. Where once the 4 humans had been avoided or viewed with suspicion, now other cadets approached them with respect and curiosity. What was it like to cross open space? A young Thexian cadet asked Frank in the cafeteria a few days later. Terrifying, Frank admitted with a smile. But sometimes the scariest path is the right one. As he looked around at his fellow cadets, from dozens of different worlds, Frank realized that their actions had done more than just expose a plot. They had shown that being from a death world like Earth wasn't something to fear or hide. It was something to be proud of, not because of the strength it gave them, but because of the choices they made with that strength. The universe was vast and often dangerous. But with courage, wisdom, and cooperation, even the most unlikely allies could create something wonderful together.